The story of Ethiopian Airlines Flight 961 begins on November 23, 1996. The aircraft was a Boeing 767, one of the most modern and reliable airplanes of that time. It belonged to Ethiopian Airlines, Africa's oldest and most respected airline. Its planned route was Addis Ababa, Nairobi, Brazzaville, Lagos, Abidjan. On board the plane were 175 passengers and crew members. These included families, business travelers, airline staff. No one expected that this normal flight would turn into one of the most tragic aviation events in history. Airport security in the mid-1990s was not as strict as it is today. Because of this, it was easier for people with bad intentions to board planes without being detected. The aircraft was commanded by Captain Loyal Abate, an experienced and highly trained pilot. He was assisted by First Officer Jonas Mikkonen. As the plane took off smoothly from Addis Ababa, for the first part of the flight, everything seemed normal. Passengers were seated, food service had begun, and the aircraft was cruising safely. However, hidden among the passengers were three men with a dangerous plan. They were not armed with guns, but they carried something just as powerful. About 45 minutes after takeoff from Addis Ababa, the three hijackers, seated separately in the economy cabin, stood up almost at the same time and moved toward the front of the aircraft. They verbally declared that the plane was being hijacked and pressed toward the cockpit door, confronting the flight attendants who tried to block them. The door bursts open and the three hijackers push inside, shouting angry and showing axe and fire extinguisher. Once inside the cockpit area, they made their primary demand clear. The aircraft must fly to Australia instead of Nairobi. One man positioned himself directly behind the captain, while another stayed near the cockpit door to control movement between the cabin and cockpit, effectively limiting the crew's freedom of action. From the moment the hijackers reached the cockpit area, Captain Loyal Abate and First Officer Jonas Mikkonen deliberately chose calm communication. The captain addressed the men directly, explaining multiple times that the aircraft could not reach Australia because it did not carry enough fuel for such a journey. In response, the lead hijacker repeatedly insisted the plane must continue to Australia no matter what, saying that they did not care about fuel limits and that the pilots were making excuses. When the captain proposed nearby alternatives, Nairobi, Mombasa, Dar es Salaam, or Moroni, the hijackers rejected each option. As the flight progressed and fuel levels dropped, the tone of the cockpit conversation shifted from persuasive to urgent. Captain Abate warned more directly that continuing over the ocean would leave no safe landing option. Hijackers, however, stuck to their position, responding that the plane should keep flying and that the pilots should figure it out. Meanwhile, in the cabin, the flight attendants maintained a controlled presence. Hijackers left the cockpit after receiving a brief primer on how to use the public address system. The hijackers announced, "We had taken over the plane. We are opponents of the Ethiopian government, and we had a bomb and would not hesitate to use it if the passengers tried to interfere." After flying for several hours under hijacker control, Ethiopian Airlines Flight approached the Comoros Islands with its fuel nearly exhausted. Captain Loyal Abate made repeated warnings to the hijackers that the aircraft did not have the range to reach Australia and that both engines would stop once the fuel was depleted. The hijackers dismissed these warnings, believing the crew was lying, and continued to demand that the plane remain airborne. As the aircraft descended slightly due to fuel starvation, the left engine flamed out first. Recognizing that a total power loss was imminent, the captain began preparing for an emergency ditching. With no engine power, the captain attempted to glide the aircraft towards shallow coastal waters near the Comoros Islands, hoping to maximize survival chances. As the aircraft descended rapidly, the captain attempted to keep the wings level, but the aircraft banked slightly to the left. The left wing struck the ocean surface first, causing the wing to break apart and the fuselage to fracture violently. The aircraft disintegrated on impact, and the cabin immediately filled with water. Passengers were thrown into the sea amid debris and fuel. Local fishermen, beachgoers, and emergency responders reached the crash site within minutes and began rescuing survivors from the water. Out of 175 people on board, 125 survived the crash, while 50 were killed, including all three hijackers, bringing the hijacking to a tragic and definitive end.